watching Flashpoint with Brendan McLaughlin.
We're back now with attorney John Stemberger with FloridaForMarriage.org, backing an amendment to the state constitution barring for all time same-sex marriage. Opposing that amendment is Derek Newton with Florida Red and Blue. Derek, you've pointed out previously that you and your organization have no opinion, no point of view on the propriety of gay marriage, of same-sex marriage.
That's correct.
Forgive me, but I find that to be implausible in the sense that you're a sentient grown-up and you're working with lots of other grown-ups toward a specific cause. There's lots of things you could be working on in this day and age, and you're telling me you have no position on gay marriage one way or the other. You just couldn't care less about it one way or the other. Well,
it's not a position that our organization is focused on. We are focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's defeating this amendment, keeping this language out of the Constitution. And as a matter of fact, I personally and our organization doesn't believe, as you pointed out, that this even really bans gay marriage because, as you've said, it's already against the law. So this really...
So why are you going to so much trouble in forming this organization to overturn something that's really already the law of the land? What is your concern?
Similar to what you pointed out, it is going to be in the Constitution, which is the highest law of the state of Florida. It's going to be very difficult, maybe even impossible, to get it out. And we really legitimately believe that this amendment is worded so broadly and so vaguely as to take away existing rights and benefits from people, whether they're gay or straight.
Okay, let's talk about the law as it is, as public policy, whether it's a good idea. John, I'm married 22 years to the same woman, and every day I wake up, it's like my birthday. It's really been great.
Congratulations.
Explain to me how Chuck and Dave next door getting married and having a marriage in any way diminishes or compromises the sanctity and worth of my marriage.
Right. If it was just Chuck and Dave, we might make an exception, but we're talking about the impact of an entire society. And the concept of marriage is devalued when you begin to extend these relationships to other people.
Well, that's where I might argue with you in that I think I speak for a lot of married couples for whom it doesn't have an effect on my marriage in any way, symbolically or actually.
Well, you have to understand that when you create a same-sex marriage, you're simultaneously creating a same-sex family. So now the question is, what is the impact to children? And we believe that the union of a man and a woman, that when children understand the proper relationship between husband and wife, man and woman, father and a mother, that is the optimal human socialization. That is the best we can give children. And in all of domestic law and anything that deals with children in the law, we always ask what's best for kids, not what they can get by with.
What about the divorce rate that among heterosexuals that is astronomically high? If you're concerned about the state of marriage in the country today, wouldn't your efforts be better put toward strengthening existing heterosexual marriages instead of worrying about gay people that want to get married?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, we are going to look at reforming no-fault divorce laws in this state. We're in part of a national movement that's doing that. But we're not going to just abandon the institution. We're going to look at every aspect of it, and this is certainly one aspect of it.
You brought up the children, which again doesn't really have anything to do with the amendment in the Constitution that you're talking about. Children are not mentioned in it. Are you suggesting that a broken heterosexual marriage as parents, two divorced parents, are preferable to a committed same-sex relationship as parents?
No. We're looking at general public policy, not exceptions.
But in the real world, there are more kids that need to be adopted, for example, than there are families willing to take them in. Yet I believe it's illegal in Florida for gay couples to adopt children.
Listen,
the only state in the country.
You can adopt any child who's a baby of any race or creed. The issue is severely handicapped or deformed children and older children with behavioral problems. No one's lining up to get those children because it's a very tasking situation. But look, we believe, what do we do as a society with motherless and fatherless homes? We come to their aid and rescue. We don't create inherently motherless and fatherless homes as a matter of law and public policy. And that's what happens when you institute gay marriage. It assumes that there's no inherent importance or value to human femininity or human masculinity when it comes to the raising of children.
Do you think it does? I mean, I would argue that there are gay couples that would concede that maybe a preferable situation would be for a child to be brought up by a man and a woman by having those two role models.
Right.
But in the real world, there are children that are being brought up by neither, essentially, that they don't have any parental figures in their life. That's very, very destructive and certainly a far inferior situation to having two committed, caring women taking care of you. And I think the studies and the research shows a real absence of deleterious effects on children. And in fact, you know, the notion that children brought up by gay couples are more likely themselves to be gay just doesn't wash. Well,
there have been no peer-reviewed, refereed studies from gay parenting, and that's the problem, is that same-sex marriage subjects children to a vast, untested social experiment. We don't know what the effects are. And frankly, you know, we're seeing unprecedented social change in our culture. Things that were unthinkable 20, 30, 40 years ago are not only thinkable, but
like
given,
what?
Oh, goodness. I mean, you name it.
Well, give me an example.
Look at the divorce rate. I mean, the homosexualization of the culture. I mean, you know, the attack upon religious symbols in the public square, the high rates of abortion, the gangs in inner city. It's just the family breakdown is awful. I mean, it's really the social change is not. There's been some social change that's good, but a lot of it's just been horrendous toward marriage and family structures that have sustained us since the beginning of time.
The abortion rate has gone down sharply, actually, in this country in recent years, especially among teenagers. All these societal, this discussion that I'm having here with John doesn't apply to you and what you're doing. Is that what you're saying, Derek?
That's absolutely right. We're very narrowly focused on defeating this amendment. And one of the things I do want to point out in this discussion is kind of the suggestion that the alternative is put this in the Constitution or intentionally create, you know, childless families. That's just not the choice here. The choice is put this in the Constitution or defeat it. And if it's defeated, gay marriage is still illegal in Florida. Nothing will change in that regard. So.
These constitutional bans have been enacted in over 20 states in the country.
27.
How many of those states had a 60% threshold like Florida does?
None.
None of them. So this is a higher bar that you have to jump.
Several of them have got more than 60%, some 70 and 80%. But Florida is the only state that has a 60% margin. So it's a significant task, but we're up for it.
Some people say that these issues, these sort of societal, family, moral issues, tend to get on the ballot when social conservatives need to get out and vote, and that this will energize the conservative Republican base to come out and support somebody like John McCain, for whom they otherwise would not be particularly motivated by. Yeah. Is that behind your effort, or just a fringe benefit, perhaps?
Yeah. When we started this 3 years ago, I mean, there was no talk about this at all. Matter of fact, we were trying to get in the 06 ballot, not the 08 ballot. It's because we didn't make it in time that we're here now in 2008.
Okay, well, I'm going to thank you, John Stemberger, for coming in, and also Derek Newton.
Great to be here.
This amendment will be on the ballot for everybody to make their own decision on November 4th. Thanks so much. When we come back, Wayne Garcia plus special guest Adam Goodman here to look into the future of this unpredictable presidential primary. You're watching Flashpoint. Back in a moment.